Innovation really depends heavily on the problems we seek to address, on the questions we ask, and how we frame those questions. And what I want to share with you in my talk today is a frame that's different than the one that we normally think about. I want to talk about health technology for the other 99%, as represented in sort of the blue circles over there, and talk with you about what I've been doing to try to address that. And I really want to start with a little audience participation. I'd like a show of hands for how many of you are family caregivers. How many of you in the last 12 months have provided unpaid care to a friend or a family member to help with medical things, help with household chores, or even just showing up often to provide emotional support? Could I see a show of hands? It's kind of hard to tell with the lights, but it's about a third of the audience. And that matches really well with our very own Susanna Fox, who published a paper just a couple of months ago, which showed that 39% of American adults are in fact family caregivers. And that's been my focus. How do we make it easier for people to take care of themselves and their families? How do we make it easier on a day-to-day basis? How do we make it easier for them to remember, keep track of, communicate, coordinate all of their care activities? So I want to start by sharing sort of our traditional view of health technology, which is there are professionals and there are people, also known as patients. And the reality is that the vast majority of technology that's developed, health technology, is actually geared towards the professionals. These are not used by us people. We're not even in the picture. Some technology, particularly that sort of discussed in this session, is about patient-provider interaction. Things like patient engagement, personal health records, telemonitoring, etc. Hardly anything is developed for people to use in their own lives when doctors are not in the picture. And this is somewhat surprising because, in fact, for most of our lives, doctors are not in the picture. For most of our lives, we take care of ourselves or our families take care of us. And this was diagrammed quite well by the VA. In this chart, they make the story that the average VA patient gets about 100 minutes of time with a health professional in the course of a year. That leaves the rest of the time, the white space, the other 99.98% of the year, that they're really taking care of themselves. There's one thing really wrong with this graphic, though. That gold dot is way too big. So this is a better diagram by my friend Sarah Rigger, who's going to be talking on the next session. And Sarah has Parkinson's, so it's a pretty serious issue. And yet, in 2012, she spent 1 hour with a health professional. The other 8,765 hours, and Sarah and I have checked our math, she's taken care of herself. And can you find the gold dot on there? It's there. It's way on the right at the end. And so this is what I'm talking about. Where is the health technology for this other 99%? Why is there so little of it? And if we are going to put efforts into developing technology for this space, what should we make? What would be helpful for people to take care of themselves? And I'd like to share with you a framework that guides my thinking on this thing. So here's a very simple diagram of a person taking care of himself. The person has some health goals and has some health activities that he plans to do on a day-to-day basis. And he carries these things out. They have some impact on his health. Health is also impacted by sort of the environment. And he compares the results to his goals and makes changes as appropriate. And of course, he gets some advice from his doctors and other health professionals, both about what the goals should be, but also what actions he should carry out. And so this is a nice, simple framework. Unfortunately, life is much more complicated. Part of the problem starts with the fact that we aren't always able to carry out our actions as planned. And this non-adherence, of course, means that those actions don't have as much impact on our health as we'd like to. The reality is this non-adherence is completely unsurprising. Any single, home health activity seems trivial, but it's the never-ending torrent of these things all massed together which make them overwhelming to do. As all of you who raised your hands earlier know quite well, it's not just about taking your warfarin on time. It's about changing diapers and cleaning sheets. It's about providing emotional support and keeping track of symptoms. It's making special meals and helping with exercises. It's just a wide variety of activities. Basically, it's helping people to live. And the other issue next slide. Oh, there we go. So these are some diagrams of people that I've worked with over the last few years. Basically, the x-axis is about 18 hours of the day, and the y-axis is a bunch of activities they did on a particular day. The top right diagram is a friend of mine who's going through chemotherapy. Bottom right is a person with cystic fibrosis. The person on the left is an organ transplant recipient. And this is what they have to do every day. I know you can't read the details, but that's not the point. If you look at the chart, you can see how much is going on every day that they have to take care of. It's also more complicated than that because all of those care activities have to fit into life. And so many other aspects of life, such as your work, your family, your social responsibilities, hell, just having fun, often are higher priorities than taking care of your health. Also, we live in social networks. We have family, close friends, neighbors, colleagues who interact with us all the time, and our lives are very interwoven. We take care of ourselves, we take care of others, and they, in turn, take care of us. We strongly influence each other's lives. And being social animals, our interconnectedness is often so rich, so deep, so ingrained that we sometimes forget how reliant we are on each other. So when we talk about patients taking care of themselves, it's sort of nonsensical. It's us in groups taking care of ourselves. And so here are a couple of real-world networks. These are people I'd interviewed last summer. The top chart is of a woman, a single mother, who's taking care of her aging mother who lives in a nearby retirement community, while also raising an autistic son and another child. The bottom diagram is of a person taking care of his spouse who has Alzheimer's while also taking care of his own health issues. And as you can see, there's just a lot of people involved. It means there's an enormous overhead in terms of communication and coordination amongst all of these people. And then finally, in terms of our diagram, the influencers are not just healthcare professionals. There's all sorts of alternative medicine providers. There's Oprah, there's informal media, there's Twitter, there's your friends. And all of these people are having influence on people's lives. So this is a framework that I've been using to help think about what do people do, and therefore what technologies might be able to help them. And there's sort of a few areas that are particularly getting a lot of attention, which is a good thing. There's lots of things going on to help better communications between patients and providers and networks and so forth. A lot going on to bring better, more tailored information to individuals. And within the quantified self movement, of course, we have a home for all of the new sensors and analytical tools that we have. And in other forums, I've gone into much more depth about these areas. But for here, all I'm going to say is that as much as there is going on, it's so far from meeting our needs. There's just a long way to go. But what is really astonishing is how little is being done to help people do the doing. Think of this as productivity tools for the other 99%. And it boggles my mind that we don't have better tools to help people do the doing. After all, what's the point of having a brilliant advice from your doctor, of having just fantastic and awesome new sensors, if the person can't actually carry out their healthcare activities? This would be like a baseball team that's got a brilliant manager and Moneyball quality analytics that doesn't even have reasonable bats and gloves. And so this is what I've focused on for the last many years, developing a series of tools to help people do the doing, each one sort of contributing to the learning to guide the next one. I'm going to tell you very briefly about the latest one, which is Unfrazzle. The gist of this application for iPhone and Android is that it helps the users remember and keep track of all their care activities and stay in sync with each other. I'm going to tell you more in a moment, but the essence of the app is described in these 4 screens, which is you are connected to various members of your family, you have your self-care regimen, and you're also able to see all the care activities you're doing both for yourself and your family members. So in a somewhat simplified but very real story, we have this family. There's Sue, her husband Bill, their son Joey, Sue's mother Mary, and not to forget the pet cat Gizmo, and how they take care of each other. We're mainly going to focus on Sue and Mary. So Sue works full-time and is generally healthy, but is concerned about her health and works with a fitness coach, Yoko. Joey is a very healthy kid, but at the moment has an ear infection, and so he's dealing with some antibiotics. Most of Sue's caregiving activities are, of course, focused on Mary. Mary has chronic heart and lung issues, and so she has a lot going on in her care regimen. She's able to manage on her own when she has to, and even sometimes takes care of Joey, so she's not just a care recipient. But on the whole, the rest of the family helps a lot. Bill helps Mary in the morning with her meds and so forth. The neighbor Anka comes over and helps her go for a walk, and Sue takes care of a lot of things. Within Unfrazzled, Sue is able to see who are the people she's connected with. She's also able to see all the things she's doing for self-care. In this case, it's really a bunch of different exercises and journaling or logging about different symptoms and activities. And she's also able to see, in this case for Thursday, September 19th, the events that she has done. She made an entry about the swimming she did that morning, acknowledged a reminder she got to help Joey with his amoxicillin, and did her breathing exercises. And later in the day is going to get reminders to help Joey and Mary with some other meds. Also, she's able to see the data about her family members to the extent that they've given her permission to see. So Sue's able to see all the things that are in Mary's regimen, which are, of course, much more to deal with her medical conditions. And some of them, as you may be able to see in the small print there, are assigned to Sue or assigned to Bill or assigned to Anka, meaning those people get reminder alerts to help Mary. And she's also able to see all the entries that Mary has made. So she's taken her meds, and she's even made an entry in her pain journal. Apparently, she did too much gardening and her back is hurting. All of the things inside here, the journal and so forth, are all completely designed and entered by the user. In this case, probably Sue, not Mary, but in their own words, using sort of lists and scales and text and so forth. And to just close here, I want to invite you, to encourage you, well, perhaps actually to urge you to do a lot more to make it easier for your family, for your patients, to take care of themselves. When I talk with health professionals informally, I find they agree a lot with what I'm talking about, because in their own lives, as parents, as children, as friends, as neighbors, they see this all the time. But in their professional capacity, they often find that they work with patients in much, much more constrained ways. You're the endocrinologist, I can never get that word right. And all you care about is the diabetes stuff and really don't care about the toe fungus. But that's not good enough. We, as our patients, have to deal with all of these things. And so we need tools to help us care for ourselves. And if you'd like to do this, I'd love to collaborate with you. We'll be out there during the demo session talking more about Unfrazzled. So thank you.